Donk Nation, Jax and Janet's greetings and welcome to your daily dose of donkey with Jinja. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you some nonsensical Steelers talk in the off season again. I'm here by myself. I guess that means it's time for another one of Donkey's List. This week I've done it. I did my research. I figured out my top 5 most heartbreaking Steelers moments that I can remember. So if anyone wants to kind of put this in time frame, 90s baby, don't remember Neil O'Donnell losing a Super Bowl. Do remember losing a playoff game to the Patriots purely because of special teams, which, hey, maybe that's a little precursor to one of the moments that you're going to see on the list. But just want to kind of put it out there so people are like, how'd you forget this? How'd you forget that? Give me your top 5. If you remember those moments, put them in there. Those are just not things I remember. Yes, I was alive, but no, it didn't leave a lasting impact. Obviously, I don't even remember Neil O'Donnell being in a Super Bowl, if I'm going to be honest here. So, not going to really go into that one. I guess before I get into the list, though, of my top 5 most heartbreaking Steelers games, not moments, but games, because if it was moments, it involved things like Jesse James non-touchdown, but these are games, and to me, you're going to see a kind of weird nuance here where only a certain type of game makes my list. But other Steelers news, a lot of talk about Steelers being involved in some former first round inside linebackers that are trying to stick around, guys like Deion Jackson, former guy who hasn't really found a home for a reason, really struggled, and a guy like Reuben Foster who kind of, because of the way he was when he was younger, ran himself out of the league due to character flaws and traits. But a couple names that have been brought up in connection with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when you think about it, they kind of make sense, but at the same time, they don't seem to be the type of guys that fit the Steeler way, let's just say. So, just wanted to bring up the little news that I have been hearing because not much else is going on in the offseason. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into my post heartbreaking Steelers games. And we'll start at number 5. This would be the 2020 wild card round, a 48-37 loss to the Cleveland Browns. This is a game that was over in the first quarter. And I guess if it would have stayed that way, it wouldn't have been so heartbreaking to me and maybe would have just missed the list. But the fact is, the Steelers tried to make a comeback and made you feel like maybe they could in the fourth quarter, and then it just went out of hand again. But really, the reason this game makes my list is pure and simple. It was the Cleveland Browns. This is a team that the Steelers have historically owned, especially since they're coming back into the league the second time in the 2000s with the great picks of like Tim Couch. Ben Roethlisberger, the winningest quarterback in Brown Stadium. Remember these things. These were important monikers at the time. And this, to me, was the straw that really showed to me that Ben Roethlisberger was done with. Career should have been over. And I felt it should have been before. He just didn't have that it factor anymore in the big clutch games. Yes, he still won regular season games, but getting outperformed by the Cleveland Browns at home was just not something that can happen. Just not something that ever happened under Roethlisberger. And just, to me, it was a heartbreaking defeat because if you didn't believe the end was here, the end was now, this game absolutely showed it. Just the pure dominance and honestly just a bad snap from Pouncey to start. Roethlisberger throwing a bunch of interceptions. It was just the end of a Steelers era. Those great franchise icons like Pouncey, like Ben, you could just tell that they didn't have one last run in them. They didn't have one last hurrah in them. And I think the fact that it was to the Browns is the reason why this game makes my top 5 list, albeit at the bottom, although it's really close to moving up one spot. But that 4th spot is to be held in the 2017 divisional round loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars 45-42, where Blake Bortles protected the ball. Ben Roethlisberger didn't. The 2 turnovers Ben had that led to touchdowns, I think they were on the play touchdowns, really killed the team. Ben tried to bring them back, but the reason this game sticks out isn't because maybe it was a heartbeating defeat. It was that, it was this. There was one season where you felt the Killer Bees finally made it to the playoffs healthy and we're going to finally make that run. And New England and Tom Brady weren't going to meet us in the championship game if we had won. This was the year for the Killer Bees. And the reason this one is up there for me isn't because you ever really felt like we were in the Jaguars game, although final score says you were. It was This was the year for the Killer Bees. And this showed the lack of defense and also turnovers killed them. Turnovers, lack of defense, just bad things to mix together. And the Killer Bees with Roethlisberger, Bell, Brown, try as they might, couldn't get it done. Heck, I think Vance McDonald went off and had a 100-yard game in this. I think that was the year Vance McDonald stiff-armed, can't think of that, Conti straight to IR. So it was a great year for Vance. I mean, this was, if you were to look back at missed opportunities for the Steelers, to me, there are two. One of them's going to show up later, so I'm not going to. Actually, one of them's going to be my number one game, so you can remember that. That, to me, was the biggest missed opportunity. The second biggest missed opportunity for the Pittsburgh Steelers was that 2017 season, because that offense was absolutely top notch. The defense didn't show up at all for the Jacksonville game, but more importantly, that offense had two turnovers that were absolutely devastating in the long run of things. And there's another season way back, not my greatest memory, but another season way back where I thought the Steelers were a pretty good team and they lost to the Jaguars in the playoffs, as that seemed to be a constant theme. Although that might have been the year where the Jaguars only lost to the Titans. They were like 15-0 in the league and 0-3 versus the Titans. That might have been that year. But still, I remember basically another heartbreaking one there. But that loss to the Jaguars here is my number 4. Moving on to number 3, we have the 2001 Conference Championship 24-17 loss to the New England Patriots. I remember this game. This game was heartbreaking. This game was unbelievable. This game was the one that really, really stuck with me for the longest time. And it's purely because I remember a first quarter punt return by Troy Brown that would set the tone for the game. The Steelers get back into it. They get a field goal blocked. That's returned for a touchdown. The Steelers lose a nail biter because special teams could not get the job done. Special teams has never seemed to really be something that put the Steelers over the top. It's always something that held them back. And let's be honest, this started a good run for New England. Even though Bledsoe was the quarterback, New England really started to come around early in the 2000s. Steelers maybe change history if they win this football game. Who knows how things go? Oh, man, this one. Losing due to special teams is just, it's rough. And that's why this is one of my moments, and that's why this is one of them that sticks with me. Now, on to number 2. Gingy would be proud because we talked about this when we talked about Steelers moments that you remember. It's the 2011 wild card game, overtime 29-23 loss to the Denver Broncos. Steelers, defensive-led team, got there again, looking good. Overtime, Tebow, new rules, so if you hold him to a field goal, you get the ball. No harm at all is going to happen here. Steelers are going to get the ball. We're going to get a chance to win. And then Tim Tebow throws an intermediate slant to Demaryius Thomas. Shut down Ike Taylor, gets absolutely burned. And history's made. It's Tebow time. Everybody's kneeling in prayer. And the Broncos won the game. Tough one, tough one, tough one to take. Definitely stuck with you for a while. And to me, it's up to number 2 on this list because the other 3, you could argue those games just hurt because of what those games meant in the grand scheme of things. But in those games, we weren't the better team. In this game, we were the better team. There was zero reason for what happened to happen. But hey, sometimes history's not on your side. This is the first game where I felt like the Steelers deserved to win and lost. The other 3, the Steelers deserved to lose. They just had bigger implications on how good those teams were. This team deserved to win and lost, and that's why it's up here. Which then leads kind of into my number 1. I talked about it before. To me, this memorable loss in Steelers not in Steelers history, but in my Steelers history that I can remember, has to be the 2010 Super Bowl 31-25 loss to the Green Bay Packers. And whichever side of the coin you come up on the Steelers lost the game. You don't come up on Green Bay won the game. You don't come up on, while Aaron Rodgers did lead big drives, you don't come up on, wow, Aaron Rodgers really dominated that game. You come up on, if you're a Steelers fan, two really, really, really big plays. An early fumble earlier in the game, fumble by Rashad Mendenhall that helped set Green Bay up, take the leads, and do all that fun stuff. You either come up on the Rashad Mendenhall is the one we should all have pitchforks and flaming torches for, or you come up on late game Ben Roethlisberger a chance to win his third and cement the legacy as one of, he already is one of, but potentially moving on to one of the top tier GOATs instead of just a top tier great. You could talk, he wins that third one, who knows where we go. Does he get himself into GOAT status with his 500-yard passing? Does this talk of Roethlisberger change if he wins more Super Bowls than Eli Manning? But here's the thing, it doesn't happen. Ben throws an interception late in the game when he had a chance to take the team down and take the lead. Just heartbreaking defeat. Another one in the game where you felt the Steelers played pretty well, were in it, and had opportunities to win it, but just couldn't get the job done. And that is why that particular game, and albeit it was a Super Bowl, that's why it's up there too. The only Super Bowl loss I remember has to be the most heartbreaking loss in my Steelers history because of that. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's no regular season games in there because I'm a Steelers fan. Regular season games aren't heartbreaking. Playoff games are heartbreaking. This team is meant to make the playoffs. This team is meant to win in the playoffs. Hasn't really happened in a decade, but that's why all of my games had to be playoff games because you're a Steelers fan, regular season games really don't matter. I mean, there's some good wins that made my list, obviously, that ensured that. And I'm sure if I think back, I could think of games that lost us divisions or lost us a chance at the playoffs. But really, the ones that stick in my head are when you get into that one and done tournament and you come up short. Those are the games you remember. I mean, there's other losses to New England in championship games, although some of them were royal butt kickings, or you didn't feel this team had a chance because of that. But I thought that was a pretty comprehensive list. I want to know if anyone else has a list they feel like sharing. We can put it out there. We could talk about all the heartbreaks, the sorrows, drown them all together because that's the best way. They say misery loves company. So feel free to share with me what you have in the loss column for the Steelers. I'm sure if Laskers and Gingy come back before the season starts, I will get their list of these things. We can talk about those. Tell me what you think about the rankings I have there. Tell me if there's specific games in this time frame that you think I really, really missed the ball on. But next week, no idea what's going to go on. I'm going to try my best to figure out another list to do, or have Laskers and Gingy come join and give a list, and we can talk about that and have a little bit of a breakdown going on. See how everybody else feels. I guess it's time I'll give a shout out. Who to give a shout out to? You know what? It's close to the 4th. We'll just go ahead and give a shout out to America because it gives us the opportunity, well, at least me, the opportunity to do what I do and keep doing what I'm doing and have fun doing everything I get to do because I was born in a very, very blessed time in history to be put here. So let's celebrate the country that gave me that ability because if I was born in other spots, it could have been really terrible. Way to hit the jackpot and land in the right spot on the wheel of life, I guess. So shout out America because it's close to America Day. And you know what? Let's have some fun. Let's celebrate. Everybody stay safe out there. I'll let you know I am the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger is the YouTube channel where you get to catch all this fun content, all this nonsensical stuff. Although it's been pretty sensical and organized when I'm by myself, but you get to hear the inner thoughts of my brain, which is very nonsensical. So I guess we're keeping on theme there. Leave us a like, comment, follow. Tell us what you'd like to hear. Tell us how we're doing. Tell me how I'm doing. Leave honest feedback. Everything is awesome to hear, and I appreciate everyone who makes it through these shows weekly. So, Dog Nation, Steeler Nation, I know it's not quite time yet, but it's America Day. So you have to say, wave them if you got them. Here we go.